Hi, everyone. This is the SEBA call for January 8th, 2019. Wanted to welcome everyone back and also to congratulate everyone who worked on and contributed to the SEBA 1.0 release. Um, I think Sarah could probably talk about the what that entails, and then I think we wanted to go over some of the things that are in Jira, looking through the backlog and trying to plan out what the next release is going to look like and what there's interest from the community in setting out a roadmap for that.
Sounds good. So if you give me the presenter rights, I can share my screen.
Okay, you should have them.
Just give me a second. Right. Okay. So as you know, this email went out last night, and this is the first release of SEBA that we have done. It uses ONOS version 1.13.5 and Volta version 1.6. And a lot of other versions for a lot of other components that together make up SEBA. This email basically talked a little bit about where all the documentation is, and we have some test results over here as well. And if you remember, we on the last call of last year, we did a demo of this release, and we put all our meeting recordings on YouTube. So if you want to watch a demo of that link is over here as well. So if I just go over here to that link I posted, you can see on the menu these are sort of previous releases, but we call this one release of CORD 6.0. And as we have specified before, there's 3 ways to think about, there is a base CORD platform. It involves platform pieces. On top of the platform, you can install multiple profiles. SEBA is one such profile. It's a collection of, the particular access device. So Volta, in this particular case, is what we use to control the PON, and a collection of XOS services, the ONOS apps that make up the SEBA profile. And then different operators have different ways of working with SEBA. So the current operator-defined workflow is the AT&T workflow, which is what is part of this release. So if you go back to the installation guide, which is where you'll land up for 6.1, the installation guide basically it identifies a set of prerequisites. If you want a physical pod, there are some prerequisites of particular hardware. And once you've met those prerequisites, you can install the platform first, and then you can bring up one of the available profiles, SEBA being the profile. And then as part of the profile installation, you will also install the workflow. So that's one way of going through it. If you really just want, there is an available quick start, and the quick start really is a collection of commands that will help you. Once you've met the prerequisites, you can go and install the platform, and then the profile, and then the workflow, right? So this is a very quick way. These are using what we call macro charts. Divided up into platform, profile, and workflow. If you really want to understand what is inside each of these charts, use the individual charts, separate components, then here again is a collection of commands that you can go through for the installation. So that was the quick start. You can either go through each piece or you can go through the quick start. If you there's also another option to use the offline install in case you don't have connectivity to the internet from your physical pod. So you can go through the offline install. You can also go, if you don't have the hardware, if you don't meet the hardware prerequisites, you can just run SEBA completely inside a single server or a single VM by using SEBA in a box. So these are some of the options that are available for installation. And then in the guide, what you will find is that under the profile references is where a lot of the details for SEBA are included, including the installation, so and how you configure the pod for a specific workflow like the AT&T workflow. Then information on how you can do a number of different things once your pod is installed and operational. And if things go wrong, there's also a troubleshooting guide about, there's a lot of details in these troubleshooting guides where, it runs you through a bunch of things that you can check if those things have happened. You can't authenticate, or DHCP isn't working, or you can't get traffic through the PON. These are some things that can help you out. If we have got something wrong over here, if you discover bugs in the documentation, or you feel that you can add to this troubleshooting guide or the operations guide, please do contribute. There is I believe under the overview section, there is a this is how we create the documentation. It's really very easy, and so instead of just suggesting that the documentation can be improved by XYZ, we would really appreciate if you can actually submit documentation patches. Okay, so I've explained some of these things even in the call before the holidays. So I strongly encourage folks to go through the installation as well as these profile references for troubleshooting and operation. Okay, and back here, these are the test results. You can see that before the holidays, we actually had a bunch of failures, and then all our tests are passing. So for just before the release. Okay, and yeah, and then the YouTube video that I had mentioned. So this is all really that I wanted to cover in terms of the release. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to take questions right now.
So, Saurabh, can you remind us if on the test report, the failure, how can we, the regular user, go to see what kind of failure it is? Or if something internal has not been captured?
No, so actually all the, so like I said, sorry, the tests are all passing right now, right? That is why we can go ahead and do the release. So if you want to go through running these tests yourself in the SEBA, there is a testing guide over here which tells you about how to bring up the, sorry, that's not what I wanted, how to do the test setup, right? And run the tests yourself, and then report bugs in our Jira, right? So all the test details are over here, and our testing is, we're still developing the tests, so the test plans, there's also a link over here to tells you about all the tests that we have planned and what has been executed and what is still being developed right now. So we'd really appreciate contributions to the tests themselves, or finding bugs with the tests, or the test discovering bugs in the platform. So even as part of this release, if you look at the SEBA, there are some known issues that we have cataloged over here in this particular release. Okay.
Okay.
And some workarounds to get around those issues right now.
Okay.
Sean, to give a different answer to the same question, if you go on Jenkins, you can see the job that is generating those reports, and from the job you can see every single test and the output and the eventual error of every single test.
Yeah. Great, thanks. Yeah, I saw the screen and it is a Jenkins link. I think that's where we can find some other detail if the error is still happening. Yes. Thanks.
Saurabh, so will we? What is the tagging strategy? Will we see the SEBA 1.0 tag on the repository or code 6.1 or both?
Yeah.
The tagging has been either creating a branch tag or creating a 6.1.0 tag on the repos. Are you looking to check those repos out and then run your own tests on them, Srikanth?
Yeah, actually, that is the reason I'm asking.
Okay. If you're depending on your workflow, you can either pull the charts directly from the chartsopencore.org or do the checkout. And if you do the checkout, then you need to specify a branch or a tag. We've been doing tags on the code on the repositories that contain code or that contain like Helm charts. But there's a branch on the documentation because the documentation is likely to be updated more regularly.
I see.
Does that make sense?
The big picture. So at least will I see a tag on, for example, on a AAA application?
You will see a tag, but the tag will not necessarily be 1.0 or 6.0 because the DHCP L2 relay application has been released. I think the version was 1.8 for that particular application.
So maybe can I jump in just a second? Because we really try to keep things easy as much as possible, but as you may understand, it's quite a complex system with lots of moving pieces, right? And on the other end, we needed to make something that made sense from different angles. First thing I want to point out is that at today, the software is distributed as a set of Helm charts. This is perfectly the page where I wanted to go. SEBA as a whole. If you see at the top, there's an Helm repo add, okay? So Helm charts are basically distributed through a web server, and that's how you get them. So you don't even have, as a user at least, or as a tester, you don't even have to git clone any repository. Imagine it really like when you install a software on Ubuntu. You add the repository to Ubuntu, you update the indexes, and you install the software, okay? And then imagine that inside the charts at that website, okay, if you go even from a browser, you can see, okay, thank you. All right, here you can see that these are all the Helm charts and are packaged by default as .gz files. So here you have a choice, right? Either to install the single chart, as is explaining the guide, or to use macro chart that brings together specific versions of the software to realize a bigger component, okay? And as Saurabh pointed out before, for example, we have three macro components. One is the core platform, version 6.10 in this case, and then think about it as your operating system. And this brings inside, right, for example, a specific version of ONOS, a specific version of XOS, and more. On top of it, you install your applications. And so a good example is the SEBA profile, right? That's how we call applications in our case, which realize a specific use case on top of the operating system. And this aggregates as well different smaller Helm charts. And finally, the workflow, which specifies the behavior that the configuration of a specific profile, right? Now, a note on the version. If you see here, for example, version 1.0.0, this is something very specific for Helm charts, okay? So when you see version in the Helm chart context, is the version of the chart, okay? And not necessarily the version. It should not correspond necessarily to the version of the container and of the software that that chart uses, okay? So if you want to explore a little bit more and go backward, okay, what you should do is to download the chart, look into the chart. In the chart, there are two things specified in the main file. The version, which indeed is the version of the file, and something called app version. App version is the version of the code that chart references to, and so the version of the source code, okay? I know it sounds lots of information and it's kind of confusing at the beginning, but we want to respect the best practices that Helm charts give, right? So essentially, back to your question, now that we have the elements, I want to check out some code of a specific component, right? So first of all, you go in the list of Helm chart, you identify your component, you download it, you expand, you extract your .gz file, you go in the chart file, you will see that there's an app version. At that point, you can clone the repository, okay, from the code repository. You download the specific repository that makes that component, and you can check out the tag that is specified in the app version. And that's the way how you backward go to see and check the code.
Yeah, thank you, Luca.
If I give you the screen, do you want to go to one example of a chart where you can find the app version internally?
You want to show it here?
Yeah.
Let's go on the website, change just the screen and go again on the website where you have all the charts, and let's download.
Let me just give you the, can I just give you the presenter rights?
Sure. Yeah.
Actually, Zach, can you make that happen?
Could you repeat what you wanted me to do?
Make me presenter.
Okay, I'll make Luca. Which
it's on ONF large conference.
Okay, we'll do. One other thing is the version is, I think, one of the Helm commands. I think maybe Helm status will show the app version as well as the chart version if you have a.
That's a good way. Absolutely. Charts.opencore.org. Can you guys see my screen, by the way?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So, for example, XOS core. I hope I got a good one, right? Maybe not, but we'll see. So I downloaded the file, and now I opened it. Okay, here you have different files, but the one I'm looking at specifically, I want to look at is the chart.yaml file. Sorry, this is not my computer, so let me quickly find something to open this. I guess text edit. Yes, so you see that the file specifies a 2.3.2 version, which corresponds also with the name of the file, okay? Indeed, the file is called XOS core 232.targz, but it references to XOS core, the application version is 2.1.25. Okay. And again, it's
so is there a tag? Is there a tag on Git repository?
Yeah, there is a
Yes.
tag on the XOS repository that is 2.1.25.
Is this applicable to all SEBA components?
Yes.
In principle, it should. That's the hope. Yeah.
And this is the way that Helm does it as well. Helm will have an app version. So the chart might change because somebody fixes a bug in the chart, but they don't change the version of the upstream project. We also made it so that those app versions usually also specify the Docker image version. So you'll find a Docker container out of Docker Hub that's has that same app version on it.
Right, and the reason for these guys is pretty simple, right? Imagine that you reference to a container. The container doesn't change, right? There's nothing wrong with the code, but you discover there's a bug in the chart, okay? So what you do is, as a developer, you go inside, you fix the error in the Helm chart, or you do your improvement, and then you publish it again, okay? Now, of course, you have to differentiate it from the previous version of the chart, so you want to bump the version up to, the next version. But again, the code didn't change, so in that case, the app version would remain the same, but the version of the end chart would increase. And that's why there's this discrepancy between the two, right? Now, as a favor to make the work of the community easier, hopefully, okay, we didn't apply this rule to what we call the macro charts, okay? So if we go here, you'll see that, for example, the core platform you install version 6.10, even if it's really the first version of this chart. So what we should have done here to be really strict with the rules given by Helm would have been to generate the chart version 1.0.0. Now, we were pretty sure that the day after a bunch of people would have come back to us saying, hey, why am I installing core platform 1.0 if you tell me that core platform is 6.10? So with the hope that these charts won't change much, that they are given by release, right? We didn't apply these strict rules to this chart. So that's the reason why you find 6.10 and 1.0, for example, for the SEBA profile, okay? This really corresponds to it's just, something we made up to correspond to the release version. And hopefully it will help. A last note, sorry, and then I bring it back to Saurav and others. We try to over the time, we also try to make the correspondence between name of the chart, name of the container used, and name of the repository more homogeneous. I'd say we did some efforts in that direction, but it wasn't possible, both for timing and for logistical reasons, to make these correspondence happen for all the repositories. A good example is XOS core, right? If you see this XOS core, that's how it's called the file. So you would expect to go in Gerrit, for example, and find an XOS core repository. Instead, as you can see, what you find in Gerrit is XOS. Okay, so maybe it's more obvious for some people inside here. Maybe it's less obvious for people outside, but we'll try to make these.
Yeah, so the point is that there is not necessarily one-to-one relation between an Helm chart and the repo. For example, XOS core reference the XOS repository, but not only that one, it also references the XOS UI repo, the XOS REST gateway repo, and probably some others. But if you are looking down to map a chart to its repository, I would say that the understand which container are used, and we are trying to maintain the container name consistent with the repository.
Right. I don't know how much it will help or confuse.
I don't think it's in values.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but you know, just to give you an idea, right, of what Matteo was talking about. This chart, okay. I went in the values.yaml file for who's not really confident with how charts are made. This is like your variable file where you put all your variables, essentially. And these, between other variables, specifies also the images of the containers to be deployed on the pod when you install the Helm chart, right? And you can see that these reference a few components. Each corresponds to a different container, including XOS core, and Chameleon, XOS Tosca, XOS API tester, and more. One uses a specific version, the other inherits the chart.app version, so basically the app version we saw before. Again, I know it sounds all a little bit confusing at the beginning. That's how Helm works and the world of Kubernetes works. And imagine we really have to deal with many communities and many repositories, so we had to follow these kind of rules.
So Sarkant specifically asked about the ONOS app versions, right?
Yeah. If we have the same strategy for the ONOS application, then that would be great, because this application doesn't have own containers.
Unluckily not, because the ONOS application are not containers. The repositories are tagged as all the other repositories are tagged. They are released on Maven Central through Jenkins, and the way we specify them is inside the SEBA profile. In the value file, we define which version we are referencing.
Right.
If you can open the SEBA profile.
Yeah. So just one note. So if you just for a quick reference, hopefully the link is okay. If you go in the offline installation, okay, at some point through the guide, we also tell you, since normally the applications are downloaded from a web server online, you have to download the applications. To see the list of these application, you have to look into this file. And so this is a quick link to that file.
Yeah, down there at the bottom.
Right, and here it gives you the link, and so also the versions of the application used by the provider.
But Luca, when I check the, for example, AAA from the GitHub, I don't see a 1.1.8 tag on the repository. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I see. Okay, that's great.
I got an Arthur tag.
Right, Matteo and I were looking at what's going on here, but yeah, hopefully it makes sense.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Is there any other question on this topic, guys? All right, back to you guys.
So regarding Sean's earlier question about test results, Suchitra, if you want, can you show?
Yeah, I can.
And if you want, you have also the browser that goes the other goes here. Yeah. Here.
So the earlier question was about the test results, and then how we check and then debug some of the, if there are any failures in the test. So what we have done is we have these, when you go to Jenkins, open call, there is the SEBA releases, and these are the main QA jobs that we run here, and these are running off of macro charts. And this build job is running just building the SEPA pod and then installing and then basically checking all the containers came up. And after that, we triggered this test job, which runs all the test cases that are defined and showed as part of the test plan, which sometime back Saurav had pointed. So let's say, as an example, this one job build 22 shows that everything has passed, and 23 shows that we had failed. And here in Jenkins, most of the tests, all the tests what we have implemented are based off of robot framework, and it has a very good plugin to Jenkins, so it provides a debugging mechanism as well, and then it creates all the reports automatically for us. So here, let's say if we want to check the detailed results of these tests, then we can just go there and then click on the report here. So this shows that there are 10 test cases here, and it shows like what have been passed and failed. And if we have to go further and debug what is the failure and what is that which had actually failed, and then we can further debug what's going on using this report. So this actually gives each and every step based on the assertion that we have created as part of our test case. So any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chitra.
Thank you. Yeah.
Back to you, Zach.
Okay, so that was sort of a review of the 1.0 release, and I encourage everyone to try it out, either using the charts or trying to see them in a box or on their own hardware. I think we want to move on to sort of future development topics. Looking at this, we could. While we could jump into Jira right now, I'm wondering if maybe we need to have a discussion outside of that. Maybe create a document or do some other higher level planning before we jump straight into Jira. Does that sound like it makes sense to everyone?
Zach, I have a question, right? So, Julie and I were planning so the VOTA 2.0 will be released in less than 2 weeks, and then we also planning to the VOTA 2.0 will not have the adapter containerization portion of that, and so we schedule VOTA 2.1 with 3 sprints, mostly 9 weeks, to capture the containerization of the OpenOT adapter and also the OpenOMCI enabled Broadcom ONU adapter. So while we are doing the release planning for the VOTA, I think the interaction between the SEBA, since the VOTA is part of the SEBA framework, what does it mean for the SEBA release planning? I think that's something I would like to be able to spend some time with ONF and the community to work out a plan regarding to how exactly it's. So it seems like we're doing the bottom up, right? We define the VOTA and then we identify what owners need to be changed, and then go up to maybe the NEN level need to be changed. So it seems like a little bit bottom up approach. I don't know whether we should actually using the SEBA as an umbrella and then go top down. So I don't know whether Saurav, you have any suggestion here, because I think right now with the SEBA in place, we need to make sure we have our overall solution set matrix moving forward. Adapting the new features. I guess the feature seems to be more visible, at least to me, or the voter community, is the voter-based feature. But that definitely will impact to the owners and the SEBA, right?
Yeah, that's right. Volta, that is part of the SEBA release right now, has two critical features that are missing, right? And that has to do with what we call technology profiles and speed profiles, right? So, or bandwidth profiles, the stuff that influences the DBA algorithms. So these features are sort of halfway there in the Volta 1.x branch. And in parallel, the Volta 2.0 work is also happening. So it is still to be determined what or when the next release of SEBA is going to happen, and which branch of Volta it's going to be with. So the short answer to your question is I don't know yet, but these are discussions that need to happen with the community to see which branch of Volta, what features, what time, and so on. So it's still an open question right now.
So Sean, maybe to help clarify, are you talking about so historically what we've done in SEBA is consumed released or a branch of a released version of Volta and ONOS. Are you talking about hanging the next release of SEBA on future unreleased versions of Volta, or should we work on just consuming released versions and planning that, okay, if Volta 2.0 is out in the next 3 weeks, sometime after that we'll switch? Or are you talking about more doing an integrated planning process where SEBA features are driven by, or SEBA desires are driving Volta forward?
If I want, because I think the resource structure is a little bit different between the SEBA project and the Volta project, right? So, I don't know why I mentioned this, but anyway, so the Volta community may want to move on to the Volta 2.0, including the technology profile and speed profile. So that to be said, so once the Volta 2.0 become available, and then the 2.1, the OpenOT containerization has happened, the technology profile and speed profile need to be part of that, right? So I think we can start with a very simple model to work with the containerized adapter, and I think that is okay. But at the same time, my question is, when we have Volta 2.1 release happen, will there be a SEBA release available to work with the Volta 2.1 release? That I think that is the question. And then the other thing is the SEBA release driven by the Volta, or the needs of the Volta release changes, right? So
yeah. So Sean, the next release of SEBA will include technology profiles and speed profiles, right? It just has to, right? Otherwise, it's going to be an incremental release of what we have done today. I mean, there might be minor versions, I don't know yet, bug fixes and so on. But the next major release of SEBA has to include technology profiles and speed profiles, right? Otherwise, that pond management is really not complete. So
I agree
whenever
about that.
Right, whenever that comes into whichever version of Volta, SEBA will pick that up and then complete the system to manage those new features. Now, so it is driven by when those features show up in Volta and ONOS, right? For the next major version of SEBA.
And by the way, guys, the other nice thing of dividing again things in these macro chart and this kind of logical layers is that it's not even said that a SEBA, let's say 2.0, I'm just saying randomly now, won't be able to work on the actual Core 6.1, right? Likely things over time will change. Also the platform will evolve. That's the natural progression of things, right? But are really different things. Think like, again, you have Windows and you are using one version of Office and the new version of Office comes out. It's not saying that the newer version of Office doesn't work on the same Windows machine, that you have to upgrade also the operating system. I think being modular this way is also a very nice thing.
Yeah, that's true. It's very likely that there are some other components in the system that'll have to change once these features come into Volta, but not necessarily the base platform. That is true. So the new version of the SEBA profile could run on the same existing 6.1 version of the core platform.
Yeah, I think that's if the interface stay the same or something like that, then I'm hoping the Volta 2.0 change has not huge impact to the Volta to the SEBA. That's the wish, right? So
yeah, it won't have for sure direct impact. What likely may happen is that there are minor versions of the core platform that come out, maybe, right? Because, well, first the platform again evolves. So for sure in the future there will be other major releases, right? That's normal. But then more likely what happens is that we may find a bug in an underlying component of the platform itself, and so minor releases come out. And so we suggest you to use the next minor release to run the software. But this regardless of using Volta 2.0 or 1.6, and so SEBA 1.0 or SEBA 2. It's regardless for that. It's just bug fixing the platform itself, right?
Right, and I think the community need to work out so the release on the SEBA scheme, are we doing the SEBA 1.0 and then 1.x for the minor, and then 2.0 as the next major, and then 2.x. So that kind of we probably also need to determine. I think that it's just I think I say release planning for the SEBA and the alignment with the Volta and all other components. I think that is something definitely the community need to make sure we understand and have a very clear path forward. So I think Saurabh, I think that's something we probably, after you come back next week, we need to sit down and then have some discussion on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, if looking to do integration, it may be useful to do some of that integration work early on. I mean, I'm not sure what the current state is of Volta 2.0, but it would be nice to at least figure out what the scope of transition work that would entail for moving from 1.6 to 2.0. So maybe doing that exercise at the very beginning would help get us to a better spot in knowing how much work we need to do.
Yes, I think that's why it doesn't. Things can happen parallel, right? So that's what I'm hoping is while the 2.0 or 2.1 or 2.2 is in progress, maybe the SEBA while waiting to perfect the 1.x release at the same time, the interface and then everything else will be examined, and then marching over to the newer release to support that. So I think otherwise Volta will become just a standalone component without a workable SEBA, northbound to work with, right? So I think we don't want to see that. happen. No, so Zach, I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I don't know who should probably start that work. Maybe when we figure out how to scope.
Sooner than later.
Yeah,
Yes.
Sooner is better than later, and it would be interesting to see, because honestly, I could be tracking Volta better in a way that would help us know that.
Right.
Okay. Are there any other comments? I can start a document for planning the next version, and then distribute that on the list, and people can add to it. I think that would probably be the best route to go, unless, and then we can eventually move over to Jira. What I did with the previous tickets that were still remaining in the December release is they got transferred either to either got moved to this next release, which is whatever we name the next version, I'll change the name, or into the issues without versions. So if you're wondering where your tickets went, that's where they were moved to after the December release. Are there any other comments or thoughts?
Nope, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, then. Well, thank you all for coming, and we'll talk next week. And if you have specific design or other desires to see in the next version, please help record those in the document, which I'll distribute by email. Thank you all.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.